Okay, aloha everybody. Aloha po. Thank you everybody for coming and having us be able to this opportunity to share what's going on with CBS. And my name is Presley Wan, and currently I'm the president for the Hui Makai and Hawai'i.
Kelly Alpine, Vice President of the Hawai'i.
We're gonna Kelly's offer to fully for us when we start.
Let us bow our heads in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we ask you for this guidance tonight as we all come together and take part in this review that we have for our place, Lord, for our communities, for those who want to join us. We ask you to give us your strength, your guidance, your love, and all that we need, that is your knowledge. And Lord, you're the only one that can provide this for us. Let us have a good meeting tonight. Let us have and do the best decisions that we can. We ask your blessing upon those that have not reached here yet, wherever they may be, Lord, that you guide them safely and bring them to their destinations, Lord, as we all would like them to be. So we pray and we thank you again, and we ask you again for your blessings throughout this night as we come together and as we leave, that you be with us from now to the end, Lord. For you the power, you the love of our life, Lord. We pray, we thank you in your name through Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
So again, aloha. The purpose of this meeting is to talk story, and all the CBS's work, CBSFA, Community-Based Subsistence Mission Area, is working in Hawai'i. We're here to take suggestions and solutions. There are a few ground rules that we would like to express. The ground rules are very simple. Say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean. So if anybody can't abide by the rules, we can help you express yourself. Anyway, the question that came across my mind when we started to do this was why we did a CBSFA. And I think one of the first things was the kupuna of and reflecting on the loss of biomass, and they observed a decline in the fish biomass, and not only that, they wanted us to take care of our resources, the natural resources of the continent. So there was a time period in the 60s when there was pretty heavy commercial harvesting on the Nepali coast and so they told us, our kupuna policy, you guys better pay attention to your fishing and to what's going on in the land. So that's how we formed. It became one of the strategic plans of our Hui Makai and our Makan nonprofit. The second motivation for me personally was the lack of enforcement. Sorry, that was before you. And so it was a lack of enforcement. Now, everybody's got these, everybody got these, but back then, this is the 80s, early 80s. You know, I personally had infractions, you know, blatant infractions that I witnessed. And over a Labor Day weekend, go to use the only phone, the nearest phone was at the end of State Park. You know, and so I go stop there, you know, and to report it. Well, don't care. And the machine, the phone booth was on the phone itself was plugged with gum, so I couldn't put in any quarters in there. So I ended up driving home because I was all new already. I was bummed out, you know, planned this for Labor Day weekend with my family. And go back. Now this is the weekend. I'm trying to call, you know, the office. Nobody's answering questions. Long weekend, Labor Day weekend. So 2 days later, they took the report. So it was a lack of enforcement. And then my third reasoning why I personally got involved was you know, hurricanes. Go through 2 hurricanes and see if that doesn't wake you up. You know, we live on we are in the most isolated island chain in the world. You know, we're 2,500 miles from any port. And you know, we gotta be more self-sufficient as a community. So we as a Hui trying to do that was another reason to at least have the ability to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining as a community. And so that was another reason. And then the fourth one, this one kind of came by lately, was the rules and regulations are not adapted to specific laws. And or changes in our ocean climate and our climate change. Why did our ancestors have things like Napua no Niao, sayings, and sayings, yeah. And why is every island usually have a Kona area, which is more of a drier area, and a Ko'olau, which is like we're in Ko'olau, more of a wetter climate. Why were these things? And so fishing and planting was done on observations and were done through observations, not through rules and regulations. Communities like Ha'ena, Kipula, and Miluli know their places better than any government or state agency, or even scientific. We, the Hui Makainana, have become an example of community-based management from the mountains to the sea. We've been doing this for 25 plus years. CBSFAs, community-based subsistence fishing areas, are not the answer, but they're a solution. So we're all here to take suggestions and find solutions. Mahalo. You.
Okay. Aloha everyone. I'm Emily Cadiz and this is Billy Keeney and we're representing the Hui. We both are staff members of the Hui. So today there's a few things that we wanted to go over. But before we go over them, we wanted to acknowledge who's in the room. We're super grateful for our fellow Hui members and Tipua, our executive director, Uncle Jeff, Sophia, and family that have come to be here to represent our Hui. We also have our Makai Watch coordinator in the room, Hanoi, and Blue. So mahalo to our Hui for showing up in support. We also want to acknowledge Kevin Chang, a huge force that I'm pretty sure he just came from traveling and literally just got off the plane and then decided to come here with us. So that goes to show Kevin's dedication to us. We really wouldn't have gotten through with this designation without Kevin and Kua. So mahalo and for bringing Olan with you. We also want to acknowledge Uilani and our family, our Ohana from Big Island that flew in. This is currently the communities that are working towards CBSFAs for their communities. And so with that being said, Billy and I have really worked hard to make sure that these reports are not only reflective of the community and our research collaborators and our co-management partners, but also within mind that there are communities literally flying in here to listen today or on Zoom that are literally here to like waiting to hear from us and how's it going. And you know, they have their Kipo Hulu has their hearing this week. And so we like to say that sometimes it feels like being the hiapo, feeling like being the elder sibling, and you kind of catch cracks at first. You kind of take all the things so that your next siblings who are gonna go through the process know what to look out for. And so we really have you folks in mind when we did this report. And so we want to acknowledge you guys for coming. And also a huge acknowledgement to Kule Rogers, Anita, the research gang, Gar. I just found out Kule is gonna be retiring soon, and so we're super grateful every time she's just on the next flight over to be here physically in support. And so we're really grateful and to you, to Anita. So mahalo. I know there's a lot more people to mahalo. I'm sure there's people on Zoom. Oh, and we also want to acknowledge the McLaughlin Ohana or McCullough, sorry, Kalamai, the McCullough Ohana who has continued to fund and support our High Watch program. Really huge mahalo to you guys, and aloha to Chipper out there. We see you. So today Billy and I are gonna go over this table that you guys there's a bunch of handouts out on the table. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but basically what we want to share with you guys today. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. What we want to share with you guys today is that this is basically your best friend. This is the more condensed version of a 20+ page report that we are in close finale with. We currently have community partners that are still editing it, even to this very second. And I think that's something that we want to be transparent with about as well, is that's the reality, is that there was no format, there was no template for a first report. And this was our first report actually, which was was it last year? We did our official 5-year share out. And that was this, and it was a 5-page document, and we evolved it into a 20-page document to follow the management plan format. So this table is really what the report's gonna say, but just in a more simplified version. So it's pretty straightforward. The first page will go over the 5 management goals. As you can see in the next column over, it's color coordinated. So it'll be rated whether it was achieved, partially, can't measure, or not achieved. So for our 5 management goals, we put for all of them that they're partially achieved. Yeah, so I can gladly read it, or it's in front of you folks to read as well. But we'll just go through the first few. So supporting the consumptive needs of the Ha'ena community partially. Long before the CBSFA, the Ha'ena community continues to feed its community through our traditional foods, kalo on the table, and our perpetuation of giving away kalo in our community and fish. We're happy to report that we just started using the NRDS data management program. Shout out to Sam and Sophia over here, who's been our data specialist in helping the input. So the Hui is transitioning into more cleaner data management systems. We also have qualitative information from that highlighted times like the floods and the COVID-19, where community members verbally had shared that how important it was for this fisheries and that it fed the community during these types of times. We have great research from Pu'ule guys on pre and post surveys inside and outside of the Pu'uhonua, which is number 3. Preserve and protect our fish nursery for our inside Makua. And then 4 and 5, we figure they're very similar, that our customary and traditional practices are perpetuated through our education programs, which is what we put a huge focus on. We have a really robust education program collaboration in Ha'ena with Lima Huli Gardens, Hui Makaina no Makana, and Namaka Onauna. And because of those organizations, we've been able to really push education at the forefront. And as we say, it's the heartbeat of a lot of our community engagement. We can't get anywhere if we don't have the families engaged and the next generation involved. And so that has been something really strong and consistent in the community that we've been keeping up with. The next column over, we'll talk about improvements. So for the first one, we still think that it's limited capacity in monitoring resources and personnel to be able to really document consumptive needs of a community. There's a lot of really great tools out there. I know that Aaron Zonre and folks in the past have created socio-ecological surveys that we've considered using. But again, it comes to personnel. We're all pretty strapped in our current positions. And so, of course, a lot more monitoring and documentation can be had, but you need the personnel for that. And then for the monitoring, we said ensuring long-term monitoring and collaborations with our research partners. We're super grateful for people like Pu'ule who have had long-standing relationships in the community and have committed to years and years and years of data collection for us. And so ensuring that that longevity continues. And then we also recognize too that some of our monitoring efforts are gonna take more time for real results and data to show. As you folks know, coral, for example, is something that has a really slow growth. And so it's really hard to give a real solid kind of answer evaluation at 5 years, so 10 to 15 years. And with more data, we'll be able to support and share a little bit more on certain aspects of the fisheries.
For us, the big one, a big one for many of us is the consumptive needs. I think that is one of the contested things in the CBSFA is that people might feel like, if we're being totally honest, people might feel threatened when they don't feel welcome or they don't feel their ability to access Ha'ena's fishery seems to be constrained by rules or whatever. But really, Ha'ena has always been a place that's been open. It's always been, we always tell people, you can come and fish in Ha'ena, just fish like we do, you know? And it's been like Mehana Lake Ron has publications about mahele and about how sharing catch is a traditional customary practice that has benefits much beyond just fish. And she demonstrates that in her publications, that Ha'ena has been doing that even before the CPSFA, even before concerted efforts to manage the fisheries. And Ha'ena is still a place where catch sharing has been very prevalent and important. So that's just kind of what.
So for the next page, it is the 4 management objectives. We evaluated those. So for the first one, of course, establish rules that reflect traditional Hawaiian fishing and management practice. That was obviously achieved through HRS. The second one, establish rules to address adverse impacts of tourism and ocean recreation activities. We put partially. Over the past 5 years, the Hui has implemented a program that has reduced non-resident visitors from 3,000 to 5,000 people per day to 800 or less. This has also reduced the number of cars by several hundred each day. All of this has helped our marine resources that were under pressure from over-tourism. So I'm sure a lot of folks of you know about our Ha'ena State Park and our shuttle system. So that has a direct impact on our fisheries and has a direct impact on our place in itself. So that side by side with the CBSFA has had huge positive impacts in the area. The Hui has reached to Dobar multiple times to address immediate needs to update the voting rules for Ha'ena. That is an issue. That is something that we're hoping will get fixed, but Dobar has been probably one of our hardest struggles to get through is the voting issues. That's our biggest one.
Yeah, and then this past summer, this past year really, voting activity has, with tourism rebounding, with activity rebounding from COVID-19, we've seen like commercial voting has kind of escalated to a point where we were observing some pretty shifty activity with boats coming into the Ha'ena CBSFA. So in order to address that, our Hui got together and was like, we'll have a talk story with commercial boating, tour boats, and just talk it out. We're not going to grumble. We just want to find some solution. We want to air our concerns about commercial tour boats in the Ha'ena CBSFA. And it was generally like really olu, like it was really good to talk to them, and everybody was really open to what we had to say, even as far as them allowing us to kind of suggest certain things like, Ha'ena is a known akule aggregation area, akule fishing area. And all we did was ask them, maybe you guys can go a little bit further out instead of shooting right into the Makua area. And they were gladly, they went out, they marked their GPS. And so now they're following this line that allows them to go outside of this akule aggregation area. It's just like that stuff like that is really important. And but the Hui is the one that just opted to do this on their own, so that we could find some solutions that was really needed at the time. Now we're hitting a shoulder season where their commercial boating might take a change, but there still needs to be some discussion about kind of outdated normal rules and CPSFA and where those two rules that apply.
The next one is increased abundance of native fish species, meaning kohu, he'e, urchins, lobsters, opihi, and other shellfish. We put partially. The Hui has experimented in different limu monitoring techniques and with partners. In April 2018, the Hui collaborated with KUA and hosted a limu workshop for our Ha'ena community, as well as Chris had mentioned earlier, the Ko'olau, our neighboring community, where limu practitioners are very prevalent in both spaces. So we hosted a workshop for them. And then in September 2019, we hosted a big Hui gathering, limu Hui gathering in Ha'ena at Camp Naue, which brought together limu practitioners across the Ha'ena. So our limu involvement and limu monitoring right now is mostly through workshops, exchanges, those sorts of things. Like I said, we've experimented with a few limu monitoring techniques. We have extremely awesome limu practitioners in our community, such as Billy, Leiwan, who perpetuate limu education. And we're still exploring formal monitoring techniques in limu. And for Opihi, Pilika Andrade and Namako Nauna has led a lot of our Opihi monitoring throughout the years, and we're excited that they've developed a newer method called PAC, which is productivity and carrying capacity, which there's a whole write-up about that and their management suggestions for Opihi. So that is our monitoring for those things. I think this report was really helpful too, because as an educator for the Hui and for Ha'ena, when I was doing my thesis, we executed a lot of marine monitoring efforts with our youth in the community. And so being able to see kind of the gaps of where monitoring isn't taking place, kind of sparked the idea of how our youth can get involved again. And so looking into partnering with our local schools again and our homeschool families to kind of get some of these areas a little bit more tended to in documentation and monitoring. And then the fourth one is improve coral health by increasing percent cover. We have to thank our Ha'ena lifeguards really in that collaboration. They are constantly educating our tourists about not walking on the reef. And sharing about the sunscreen usage and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really nice effort between our lifeguards, our residents, and our community members. And then I'm gonna let Hule folks share more about their awesome research that'll kind of tie more into the coral stuff.
Oh, and recently we've improved some of the signage in Hana regarding just how to move about, what to do, what not to do, what sunscreen you should be using, stuff like that. So signage in terms of education, we've been working on that too.
Okay, and then the last page is the seven management activities. So the first one, of course, achieved with pursuit of HRS Chapter 91, administrative procedures to establish the rules. They have been established. The only thing that we would like to think about, or that's kind of stalling us, is we understand that the CBSFA isn't perfect, as Uncle Chris said. It's not the answer, it's not the final destination, but it is a solution. It is a step in the right direction. And the reason for doing the CBSFA is also to tap back into adaptive management practices. That's what this was set up to do. In complete honesty and transparency, we understand there are flaws in the rules. We have consensus between families and community members that there are some things that they would like to see changed or amended in these rules. However, the community is a little hesitant to go through the process just because Chapter 91 is a very daunting process to go through again to amend rules. And so we've talked about maybe at the 10-year, maybe at the 15-year, really exploring that, but that is just something that we want to make aware to state and folks that I'm not sure what we can do, but another simpler process to be able to amend and fix rules. I think some Chapter 91 is a lengthy one, so that would be the feedback for that. For the second one, pursue HRS Chapter 91, administrative rules to establish rules to regulate boating and recreational activities. That one, we gave it a not achieved. The WHOI has initiated and hosted multiple meetings with Dover and the boating community, as Billy said, and the management activity is not happening. And the WHOI requests for a Dover rules package repeatedly and hoping for that to come soon.
Yeah, I guess that's pretty much the gist of. So again, these tables are a condensed version of the more wordy report, the review. I think, and if we can conclude into takeaways, challenges, takeaways, or whatever you want to call them. One thing to point out is there's never been a 5-year review of a CBSFA, and our Ohana from Miloliki is looking at us like, oh, what are you guys doing? And it's really important that we don't set our Ohana up for failure. We never wanted or never intended for a 5-year review to be this daunting thing. And I'll be honest, it's a hard thing, especially as community members and being co-authors with other community members, with the community. The whole community is really the author, and our partners are the authors. And it's something that we want to make sure, because not every community is going to have, every 5-year review is going to look different. I feel every 5-year review that ever comes out from Menuli, Kipahulu, or any community, it's going to look different. It's going to be tuned to the experience of that community, the experiences of that CBSFA journey, and yeah, the report is the review is a really difficult thing to really take on, and much like CBSFA and some of the criticisms, the community is the ones that take the brunt of all of that criticism. We're the ones. Uncle Press is the one that gets all the calls, the emails about concerns and criticisms. And so it's good to put out there that you got to remember that the community is the one that bears the burden, bears sometimes the echo and the hurt of these difficult, conversations.
Okay, number three, enforce CBSFA rules, dole care, Makai Watch Environmental Court. We're really excited that 6 new officers for Hawai'i was through the recruiting class in 2022-2023, and that's been awesome to see that presence a little more. We have our Makai Watch program that's slowly getting established with Panoy as our coordinator. Still struggles with enforcement, but we're working through it and taking steps towards that as we build the Makai Watch program and more volunteers showing presence and supporting it. The fourth one is conduct education and outreach. That's achieved and feels really strong with our education ongoing. The Hui's been around for over 20 years conducting education and outreach about their organization. So that's maintained itself, as well as over 40 community events and over 200 community work days just within this time period of our CBSFA designation. Number 5, seeking funding and resources to implement for CBSFA achieved. That's again thanks to the McCulloughs. Who was very generous to donating to supporting our Makai Watch program as a tool for them. Cue the vote. So thank you to them for believing in us and funding our efforts. That was really cool too, because I believe that now the state is getting funding to support Makai Watch, but the Hui was really lucky to have family in the community that wanted to see this happen and support it right offhand. And so the Hui was able to get that going. Number 6, monitor marine resources. You're gonna hear about that more. And again, all of the different reports of all of the folks who have done research for us are on these little 1-pagers on the table. So that's all of our different research collaborations, and we thank them. And then lastly, evaluate achievement of management objectives to manage adaptively.
Biggest one.
The biggest one.
Yeah, this has always been the goal, I feel, of the CBSA, and I could be speaking personally, but adaptive management is, it's a Hawaiian thing. We kilo, we observe, we create a process, a cycle of understanding what we're seeing, and then go back to the decision-making process to think about what is best, be flexible, and it's all based on kilo, on observation. I would say, don't be alarmed by all the blue that says partially, because what that basically means is it's ongoing. And if we were to state a takeaway, is that all of this just needs more discussion in order to be a truly adaptive process and a management model. And many of the solution boxes are unfilled because that just requires more discussion, and that's one of the takeaways that we have in some of our materials, that there needs to be more co-management discussion, more collaboration, more partnership, and just continue adaptive management and talking story. Any other takeaway? Anwar, say anything? Press say anything? Yes.
I think one last thing too that I wanted to mention, it's leaving my brain, was that we'll make this document available to folks, and we'll make the report as well. I was just talking to Heather earlier. It's a living document, so bear with us. Don't take everything that you read for what it's worth. It's been a really daunting process to even put that into words and put that into a management report, really, for many of reasons, and that's the burden that we've tried to carry as best as we can. I mean, we were even looking at it night, and it looks different from discussions that we've had just internally with our Hawai'i board like a few months ago. So it's a living document. I wish we might try to find a way to post it and make it viewable, but understand that it's gonna keep having edits and changes. And so that's what we'll provide folks with very soon. And yeah, I think, oh, and the last thing I wanted to mention was the half sheets that we passed out. Sorry for folks online that didn't get a half sheet, but basically we passed out a half sheet. One of the things on the half sheet was to give feedbacks, concerns, and comments. But alongside that, there's another piece to the paper that says solutions and ideas. And this is our attempt to change the behavior of community meetings and feedback. We welcome the comments, the concerns, the issues, we welcome that, but we also, like Uncle Press said, we're just doing this for the first time. We're really figuring it out step by step, and it's scary. Believe me, it's scary for the community that's on the front lines. It's scary for Uncle who's answering his phone and putting out fires daily. And if you can imagine the mental, emotional, and spiritual burnout of that, that's real. And I need everybody to just kind of really take that in and consider that. And so when you write these things, we really are trying to shift and ask for solutions. And we're open to it. This is a collaborative management system. This is a community-based management system, and that's what we want it to continue to be. So if you have an idea for something, or you don't like the way you see something, please, along with your concerns, we would welcome and love solutions and ideas with that as well. So with that being said, mahalo. We'll take any questions at the very end. We're gonna try to get through all the presentations first. So next we're gonna call up Ku'ule and Anita. Mahalo.
I don't.
It's just so that people.
Oh,
Sorry. My thoughts would be there.
Okay, mahalo. This on? No. Now it's on?
Yeah.
Okay. Ku'ule Rogers again, and I'm with the University of Hawaii at the Hawaii Institute of Marine Biology in the Coral Reef Ecology Lab. And in 2016, the Division of Aquatic Resources asked our lab to come in and look at the efficacy of the first CBSFA in the state of Hawaii. This CBSFA had begun it was established in the year before in 2015 by Makainano Makana, and it was a long and arduous process, but they got through it. And what they wanted to do here, they had a lot of goals, but one of the main ones we were interested in was to see, they wanted to support fishing for subsistence, religious, cultural purposes, for sustainability throughout the generations. So we wanted to see if that was something that we could help with. And there were other CBSFAs that came later, like Miluli'i, but at that time, there were other CBSFAs that wanted to apply or did apply, but being the first one, they wanted to see, the state wanted to see if this co-management was going to be something that was going to be effective. And if it wasn't, like Billy said, then it would be adaptive management, giving different suggestions and steps of what you can do so that it would be effective. Prior to the establishment in 2015, in 2013 and 14, the Fisheries Ecology Research Laboratory at the University of Hawaii conducted surveys inside the proposed boundaries. And this is what we used as our baseline in 2016, when we came in to compare the fishes and other organisms. So in 2016 through 2020, we conducted these surveys, over 670 surveys total. So it was a lot of surveys, so we had a lot of help. DAR, Hawai'i, Maui, Oahu all came over. We had help from the community for our fish behavior surveys as well. And that's one thing I want to really stress, because we came in during the summer. We don't have a historical background. You guys are there year round. You've seen what fishes are there, how the organisms as well as the environment is changing. And that's extremely important for us to take that traditional knowledge and work it into our program as well. We call them kahus, Hawai'i assessment of habitat use, because we were providing data for the guardians, the caretakers, the kahus of the reef. We conducted we looked at environmental factors, physical factors, biological factors, a variety of different types of factors and organisms. So in 2016 and 17, we found a strong, statistically significant increase in the fish abundance and biomass in many of the families like beke, goldfish or that have beke, jacks like omilu, parrotfish like uhu. And we also found a reserve effect, a very strong effect, which means that inside the reserve, there were more fishes than outside the reserve. Then, as everyone remembers, in 2018, there was a massive flood, 51 inches in 24 hours. State record, never had that much rain in one time in one place before, and things changed. Now there was sharp declines at this time. The fishes declined precipitously, which means most of them moved offshore. Some of them, other certain species that were more tolerant to salinity, came further inshore. The urchins, and it was mainly the rock boring urchin or the ina that declined, and many of those died. And then there was high coral bleaching, because when you have a lot of fresh water and then the tide drops, anything that's sitting on the bottom, a lot of them are going to die off. And this is what happened. We also saw it at Pila'a because we were working there at the same time. And the east side had severe declines, while the west side that doesn't have as much fresh water, we didn't see that at all. An interesting thing is, when we found these changes, it was at the shallow sites at Ha'ena only, not in the deeper sites. So we weren't seeing bleaching or fish declines in the deeper sites. So we knew it was attributed to the fresh water. There are some species that can be used as indicator species. And one for fresh water is the octocoral, Sarcophilia, that Anita had worked on. And it can tell you when there is a lot of fresh water input, there's a big bloom. And post flood, it really did decline. There were some increases in the ina population post flood and in the fish, but they were not statistically significant. They never returned back to the 2017 levels. We also looked at coral cover, because that was one thing that we was interested in. In the 670 surveys that we did, there was a slight increase in coral cover. But like Emily was set up a long-term monitoring program. And one of our sites was Limahulu in the CBSFA boundaries. And we, throughout the years, have gone periodically to monitor these sites And now the Division of Aquatic Resources have taken over the site statewide. So it's an integrated program. Here on Kauai, we have Limahuli, we have Hanalei, we have Pila'a, Miloli'i, Nualolokai, and Hawai'i, which is in Puepu. And those are the sites that are being monitored long-term. And what we found statewide, as well as at Limahuli within the CBSFA, is that in 2014-15, there was a huge bleaching, a warming event of the ocean. And we lost a third of our corals statewide. And Limahuli was no different. There was a big drop in coral cover at that time. And the shallow 1 meter site has recovered somewhat, but the deeper 10-meter site has not recovered since then. And this is the thing, it's going to be the bleaching events that are going to be most important. Human use surveys we have not done, but it is not going to be as important as these climate events for coral. We also look at a reserve effect. So a reserve effect, if the reserve is working, then there should be more fish biomass, fish abundance within the reserve than outside, and it should increase over time. So we look at a ratio between non-food fish, like butterfly fishes, and food fishes, like beke, uhu. And if the lines here, the red line are food fishes, if the lines stay together, it is not due to fishing pressure, because both non-food fish and food fish are either increasing or decreasing together. You can see the big dip in 2018 with the flood. Both food fish and non-food fish declined together. So it was not due to fishing pressure. But if you look at 2020 for fish abundance, you can see those lines start to separate. This is where the food fishes decline and the non-food fishes were still increasing. And that was the COVID year, where there was high subsistence fishing. And so it did show that within this reserve effect, that there was heavy fishing pressure during that 2020 year. Emily already went over the management goals, but the ones that were important to us or that we were looking at was the preserving of the nursery habitat for juvenile fishes. So the makua pu'uhonu, was the same that we looked at. And there was a definite increase in small and medium juvenile fishes. Many fishes do not reach reproductive size until a little bit later. It takes many years. So you don't see a lot of the large fishes in this shorter period of a certain species. Another was increasing the abundance of native fishes. And we did find that endemic and indigenous fishes did increase statistically over time, but it did not reach the 2017 levels. But overall, in the 5-year period, there was an increase. And then increasing in coral cover. And again, I mentioned that 2014-15, that was before the CBSFA was established, and that's when there was a real drop in coral cover. And in order to look at the human resources and the human activities, we would need to, or someone would need to look at how human activity in the water is related to the coral cover. And that as yet hasn't been done. I wasn't given too long to talk, so this is just what it is in a nutshell, but I want to acknowledge the Division of Aquatic Resources, and they are continuing these Ha'ena surveys as well as the long-term monitoring surveys, and then the Hui Makainana Omakana have been really exemplar as a model for other CBSFAs. And I really have been very impressed with all of the work that you have done and the support that we got throughout the years, whether or not our findings fit what they were hoping it would. So, and yeah, that's pretty much it. The community as well. I just want to stress again that it's important to get the traditional knowledge incorporated into the monitoring program. So similar to what Miloli'i is doing and developing their own monitoring program, and how Hui Makaina no Makana is also have their own community monitoring programs. This is what's really vital, because this is where they understand and see the changes, and once they see those changes, then they can go in and change their monitoring. So mahalo.
Okay, so. I want to apologize to the Zoom folks, my phone died, so we had to change phones. Yeah, so my name is Heather Ilatalo Ward, and I work with the Division of Aquatic Resources. I'm an aquatic biologist, and while I've been here, I've been working with the CBSFA, and some of the things that DAR was tasked to do in the 2016 management plan. We made a framework for what are the roles of each of the people. You know, and sometimes that's changed over time. And I'm just gonna kind of go through, like Emily and Billy did, some of the things that were our management goals and whether or not we were able to achieve them, some of our challenges, and what our plans are moving forward. So most of the roles that DAR had were in education and outreach, monitoring, and enforcement. So for education and outreach, one of the first goals was to develop and install appropriate signage and marker buoys. So as Billy was talking about, we did put the signs in, but they're not great. I mean, we got a lot of feedback from the community that there's too many words, it's very complicated to understand what's happening. So thankfully, the community has put out these new signs that seem to be doing really great. I have gotten feedback from people who said that they really understand now where they need to be staying out of, so that's fantastic. The reef markers has been a big challenge for us. We got them out originally, but that system is so dynamic, and those marker buoys were just too buoyant, and they kept coming off the reef. So that wasn't, unfortunately, that didn't work. So since then, we've been trying to redesign. We've had some challenges trying to get permitting with OCCL. And then also, we want to make sure that when we do come up with a design, that it is something that the community is happy with, and it's not going to be too much of a visual eyesore, but it's something that DoCare can use to be able to look out and say, oh, there's a person who is not supposed to be there. They'll give them the ammunition that they need to be able to cite people and make sure that people aren't using that activity zone. And the next one was provide information and updates about the CBSFA rules on the DAR website. And I'm going to kind of go through these fast. You do have a handout of all of these that is listed in there. And like Emily was saying, we're going to be putting these up on the website, so people will have availability to check those out. But yeah, I'm going to go through pretty quickly because I want us to get to the point where we can have some feedback and questions in the top story. So we do have this on the website. We have all of the rules there, and one of the things that we want is to reach a broader audience. And we've tried to have someone design an app, which was very cool, but there weren't a lot of people who were downloading it, so we took it offline. But we'll continue to update the website as things progress. Then update and provide the public with pre-printed copies of DAR fishing regulations. We have those.
Sometimes the brochures it seemed like they were targeted at fishers, but we want to have some brochures that are targeted at visitors because oftentimes they're the ones who are not behaving correctly. So that's something we're talking about. And we're going to continue to provide those handouts. Support Ha'ena communities, CPSFA education and outreach events. We have fantastic education and outreach guy, Aaron Swink, and before he started, Katie Nalasari was our education and outreach, and she did some great work with the CPSFA as well, working with the Mahuli Gardens, Hawaii Family First, and these have been excellent education and outreach events, and it's a great way to maintain communication and keep a co-management relationship. And Dar's going to continue. Develop education materials and conduct outreach to raise awareness of the CPSFA rules. That's another thing. Dar is distributing those regulation booklets like I was talking about. But again, that is one of the things that we find a lot that people tell us that they don't actually know what the CPSFA is. So that's something that we're going to try and keep working on with outreach to try and make sure that we're targeting the right audiences so that they get that information. Convene and participate in annual community meetings, provide updates to the public on Ha'ena CPSFA management activities. So there was an annual meeting in 2017, but then as Ku'ule was mentioning, everybody remembers what happened in 2018 with the flood. And then we convened again in 2021, and we kind of decided that maybe annual meetings might be a lot, because we're maintaining communication throughout the year. And so as long as we continue to maintain that communication, then it should be good. And there's a 10-year review coming up, and we can continually have these check-ins. And we have moments like tonight where we're having this event, which is great. And then monitoring, Ku'ule gave you a great overview of the monitoring, and Dar was helping with that, just kind of on the side, helping with some of those monitoring, and Ku'ule and her lab was driving that monitoring project. But now, after 5 years, now Dar has been given this responsibility, and so we're going to try to carry her torch and do the best we can. We've been continuing to monitor those sites and those partnerships. That's one I would like to mention, that the partnerships are just so important, especially in the beginning of the establishment of the CPSFA. Dar didn't have the resources to do all of that monitoring. We needed Ku'ule's lab to come out and help with the monitoring. It takes so many people to make this happen. And like I said, we'll be taking over. And then enforcement, we were supposed to facilitate communication with DoCare, but the community is speaking with DoCare. We are talking to them. There's the Makai Watch trainings, which are great. The community is involved in those. And now that there are more officers too, it sounds like that's going to be something that's going to be helpful. And like I said, with the markers, having those window markers will be helpful for doing this. So the takeaways, really, collaboration is key. It takes so many people to make this happen. Like Uncle Press was saying, this is not the answer, but this is a solution, and especially watching how this is going for the first time. This is just so amazing to have this community be the trailblazers, make this happen. And yeah, some tasks are taking longer than anticipated. That is definitely what's happening with the board. So I think as long as we all keep things very transparent and take accountability where our weaknesses are, that we can move through this and reach a really great point. So so I kind of sped through that. I wanted to get to the point where we can have some feedback. So if Emily and Billy want to come up, and Ku'ule and Uncle Press and Uncle Kali'i, if you want to come up, and we can see if people have any questions. Or anything else? Good question.
Hey, Heather, would you be able to stop the screen share so we can see the?
I guess we can start right here with folks in the room. Go ahead, Kevin. Go ahead.
Just getting, couldn't hear you guys, we keep boosters.
Oh. Okay, let's all go and introduce ourselves again then. Let's do that. Ready to come ahead. Since you're the first speaker.
I'm Emily Cadiz. And I am the education coordinator and community liaison for Hawai'i Gardens.
I'm Heather Ilatala Ward. I work with the Division of Aquatic Resources and I am an aquatic biologist.
Hule Rogers with the University of Hawaii.
Well, Presley Juan, president for Hawai'i Makahana.
Kelly Alapai, Vice President, Hawai'i Makahana.
Aloha, Billy Keeney, currently assistant to the director, with Makana.
Manoe Alapai Hashimoto, Makai Watsuka.
William Kaleokini, just a full member of the Hawai'i.
Aloha, I'm Pua. I'm the executive director of the Hawai'i Makahana.
Any questions? Comments? Okay.
Okay, so if you had a blank check, where would you put the money first and why?
Yeah, sorry, we're gonna refer to our executive director.
Aloha family. One of the first things we really want to do is flesh out a more robust Makai Watch program, and be able to offer our not only our coordinator employment. See, right now our coordinator has a full-time job and he's also doing this part-time, so that makes it 1.5 jobs. We'd like to be able to provide a coordinator a full-time living wage job and a team to support them in the work that they do. So in answer to your question, I want to say that we would probably try to flesh that out, and with more resources being thrown at it that way and having people, human resources, I think we could flesh out a really robust program.
How about
Let me turn it up just a little bit.
that right there?
How about, do you have any kind of youth internships, you know, the high school, college age, paid, but to be part of your monitoring? Because that's what you really want to be doing also is building up your next generation. And maybe that could be part of what you'd be spending money on. Do you have programs like that?
Good question, absolutely. I wish I had time today to almost do just an education presentation, that's a whole nother one, but we have a very robust education program. The Hui has been holding internship programs for actually quite a few years now that have targeted our Ha'ena lineal descendants, youth in the community, specifically high school age, where they attended field schools in collaboration with the Hui as well as Pilika Andrade and got to go learn marine and watershed monitoring techniques on Kauai and on the Big Island. And then our programs have morphed too as well every summer. And now working with Hawai'i Gardens, we're also offering a biocultural internship that's all paid for. Well, pretty much every internship that we've ever had in Ha'ena has been a paid internship for our high school students and early college. And it's growing more and more, and so we're really excited about that. So we definitely, and we don't limit it to just our high school and college students. We're training our 5th graders and our youth in these monitoring techniques. When I was doing my thesis, our 5th graders were helping with OPE monitoring, our Hawaii 5th graders. I think the state was a little shocked at first about how you're gonna have fifth graders do your data, but you know, that's what it was all about, and we got pretty good feedback on that. So education and involving our next generation is huge to us. That's actually what I was gonna say. I was gonna do with the money, but defer to her first, but I'll put on education too.
I guess, well, if Dara were to have a lot of money, I think what Kukulay was talking about with the study to look at the effects of human use on the corals in that area would be really interesting. I think especially with the voting that Billy was talking about, you know, how is that affecting that? And then also, you know, doing the monitoring, like you were talking about, it's like human use surveys of people on the beach, how many people. We started something like that. We tried to do these shoreline effort surveys where we were looking at how many people we saw. But we just, this year, we kind of don't have the resources anymore. We had a lot of people out. So that would also be nice to have more people to be able to do that.
I think, we had more money. I think, we would put more, emphasis on, you know, youth programs, and engaging the next generation, which we've been fortunately, we're in a good position with, some of the management group in the state parks that we're able to, this was our first employee right here. Emily, she was a young intern, came out, loved Anna's community and loved being there. And I think Anna, I used to tell her, and also Billy King, video descendant that is getting involved. Really hope that we can provide opportunities for, you know, our Mopuna that are coming up to be able to scientifically and like and I refer to it as like a university. It's, you know, a lot of our local kids, you know, we may not be good at math, we may not like myself, can't verbalize very well or read very well, but put something in our hands and we learn. Well, we learn by observation. So, yeah, thank you for the question.
I would just reiterate, yeah, people, I don't know how money translates to people, but that's really the resource that is the most valuable to us as people. Besides fish, but fish can't catch cats, so more people, more capacity, more hands, more eyes, more kilo. That is what I do feel is going to make the CPSA the most effective is people.
Did you have somebody else?
I have a suggestion, just a thought for you to consider. Sometimes when I hear maybe lack of understanding on what's happening, it often comes from other parts of the island. So I wonder if you could have like a little camp opportunity, so you can bring the Waimea High kids, or you know, have them come for like a week, and then maybe do an exchange and send some of your people over there to help them brainstorm what might work out, you know, how you can cross pollinate each other and really build that family sort of the way like canoe clubs do or whatever, so it becomes a Kakua thing and that it's even more acceptance. Bad choice? I don't know.
Sorry, I'm reading the next question up there. Yeah.
Oh, so to answer that, Felicia, great question. So one of my tasks, I also work for Pilica Andrade and the Maka'onaona, and we've actually been holding an Akiwa'aina education program at Waimea High School for the past 5 years. So that's been really cool. That relationship has brought a lot of West Side kids to Ha'ena to learn about us and what we do, and we've also brought our North Shore kids to there. So we've had a really great blend of West and North Shore kids just getting to know each other, getting to know similar dynamics they go through, similar things. So that's been really positive. And then I know to this day, Uncle Press does an incredible job of really honoring like that face-to-face time and calling. Still to this day, when he hears opposition or folks that have concerns, he'll pick up the phone and call them. And it's something that him and Uncle Keely have always done from the very beginning, the inception of the CBSFA. I remember jumping in the car and being with them, and it was a heated meeting that they were about to go into on the south side, I think. And by the end of that meeting, there was no yelling, and Uncle guys were literally hugging in tears with the fishermen on that side. And for a young person that's seeing that to me was like such a great example of leadership. And I think that's why the Ha'ena community has been so successful, is really because of these uncles and the way they carry themselves. It's still a challenge to this day to address things that come their way from other fishermen across the communities. And I know it really eats them up internally. And I know they do their best to honor what everybody has to say to the best that they can and not carry it. But yeah, thank you.
So we have a question. Oh, no. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so you see each and every one of us up here, yeah, a lot of time, a lot of sleepless nights, and just so much mind stress, and for all of us. And we've come down a long road, and we're here today, and it's not something easy, like we're always saying, it was a challenge, and it's still a challenge. We're not done yet. But all we can do is one day at a time and do our best. Don't forget our traditional practices, where we came from, who taught us, what we know. And that's a kupuna. We're not going to forget that. So, thank you to our enforcement too for all that they did to, everyone. But these guys, when we called them with the amount of officers that they had, they came out, they tried to come out and somehow send someone. So thank you to your department, Grace. And so we'll just journey down the road, and we have a good crew here, a good team, and we get the young ones now involved. Is what we want. Yeah, we all like to see that. And we just stick to the game plan. Yeah, thank you.
So there's a question in the chat about some of the specific challenges with Dobor. Oh, is there a question about that? Oh, okay. We'll start with that one then. Let's see, Heather.
Yeah, the question is, what are the chances that the Pu'uhonua boundary buoys will be installed before next summer? Okay, so I want to say that the chances are good, but unfortunately, we've kind of just run into another hiccup where it sounds like we're probably gonna need to hire a structural engineer. So that's gonna add some time to the process. And then there's some other hurdles that we have to jump over before we're gonna be able to install. So, we wanna do it the right way. We wanna make sure that it's there and it's not gonna be damaging anything, because that would be the worst. If we install the markers and then they come off and they damage the reef, it's horrible, I feel awful. So we wanna make sure that it's done correctly. And yeah, so unfortunately, probably not. But I'm so grateful to the community for putting out those new signs, because like I said, I've had feedback where people have told me, like, oh, it's so clear where I'm not supposed to go swimming. And it's like, oh, well, good. I'm so glad.
Just one thing just to tack on with what Heather said, we did try and do we had a design that we had worked out with some fixed markers, and we did a test anchoring, and it just was not gonna work. Like that's why we went back to square one, and we're getting the nerds involved, because we were concerned that these markers were not, the reef is so soft the substrate is very soft, and so we're gonna have to really think on how we're gonna be able to get something that's truly gonna be permanent and not damaging there.
But I do want you to know that we have been working consistently, quietly in the background, trying to do this. Like, we have gone through those designs, like Aaron said, that we realized were good. So as much as it seems like we're just not doing anything, we really are trying to reach a place where we will be able to install this.
We're trying to knock out some of these questions from the chat. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to Honolulu Initiative for that signing. You know, like to include them. You know, so it's not everything is a way, it's community. So thank you to Honolulu Initiative for that signing. You know, with communication with us to come up with a draft. So
Yeah, thank you so much.
Honolulu Initiative.
I put that in the slide, but I didn't say it out loud, so I'm so glad we mentioned that.
Okay, what CJ asked in the chat, what are some of the specific challenges with dough board?
Where do you start?
Yeah.
They couldn't make it tonight, they were invited, but they couldn't make it over.
What are some of the specific challenges with dough board that were mentioned?
Enforcement. From there again on the water. However, you know, and I'm pretty sure low bar under the bus. You know, we did do this part when we did have this outreach with the commercial fishermen. We organized that with the boaters, commercial boaters. So he did organize that meetings with the both North Shore and West Side. So big mahalo to Jeremiah for that. However, I think, you know, you need to come up with a marine team. It's not everything under the LNR. You know, I think a lot of these concerns require a local. So that's a good question. Up to start.
I would add to that exactly, you know, Jeremiah is doing his best, Dope Board doing their best, but I think the challenge is jurisdiction. I think it gets a little muddy when you get into spaces like that about who's supposed to enforce. Then you have like all these layers of different rules, you know, we're essentially tacking on CBSFA rules onto a seascape that already has normal rules and, you know, the Dope Board, specific North Shore Dope Board normal rules. And it's just, it's a little bit difficult to talk about them, but I think the solution is just gotta keep talking about it, and Dope Board has to be in the room, you know.
I think one of the outreach, we had outreach with the voters, and we had a meeting with the North Shore voters and the West Side voters, commercial voters, and I think the idea, you know, again, the community is the one is initiating these meetings to get these guys together, you know, because otherwise, you know, the problem was where they're anchoring. That's why they're anchoring in the Akuli aggregation zones. And, you know, we presented them with the problems that we have and asked them to come up with a solution. And so not only did they come up with some solutions that agreed to avoid, you know, these certain places, that they were able to talk to each other. You know, they were able to organize themselves, because it shouldn't be the burden of the community to have to go and initiate all these rules. They have to take their part of it. And one of the big problems again is the anchorage, the amount of anchorages, and the amount of people that are in the water. You know, we got some days we got 100 people in the water. You know, and so it's just like the cars on the road. You know, the community, the way it came up with, it had a carrying capacity, the place has a carrying capacity, so just like the ocean, it has a carrying capacity, so. And it's close to our nursery, area, so. Anyway, that's some of the issues that we're working with the boating industry.
Question from Paula.
I was just wondering if you guys had any advice, specific advice or words of wisdom to share with other communities like Miloli'i, and Kipahulu Ohana that are, Miloli'i just got their CBSFA established and Kipahulu is trying to.
My advice to them would be, don't stop. Continue. We are here to help. This is what we started. And we are here to help all of the other communities that want to do it, to do this, yeah. And no scared, no scared. We can do and we're going to do. We stay together, we talk, we'll do.
Simply relationships. That's kind of the answer to most of our troubles and our tribulations is relationships. And through building strong relationships, we can find a way, find a solution to work through all the hardships that comes with CBSFA designation. For instance, it might be like a little thing, but just knowing the people that are sitting across from you and looking at them as ohana, as not just ohana in the fisheries, but literally ohana because we care for the same thing, which is our fisheries, our subsistence practices, and our traditional customary practices, but especially pertaining to all the things that we depend on, which is those resources.
Miloli'i, Kipahulu, Wande Mo'omami. Advice I would give is, don't forget where your ike come from your kupuna. Stay true to that. For what is specific for your area, how you guys live. Nobody can take that over.
Shall I do one? Okay, so the next one is, I continue to be amazed at how many people do not really understand the purpose or rules of our CBSFA. Many fishermen still feel they can't come fish in Ha'ena. How can we do a better job of getting the word out that everyone is welcome to fish here? We just ask that they respect our rules. And that's from Chip.
Hey, Heather, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's one of the things that we're going around, social media, it's a good thing and it can be a really bad thing. And the thing I find that you can say anything you want to somebody and not be accountable, just type. But when you sit across the room from me, talking face to face, and let me make it perfectly clear, we're not keeping anybody out of Ha'ena. But when you come down, this respect the rules and regulations and why we did it. And we're not excluding anybody. It's not a private fishery. That's one of the things that are flying around in social media. So my advice to everybody, just check your sources. So anyway, that's my commentary.
Just mention one thing, as since this is part of Dar's Kuleana is to conduct outreach to the fishing community island wide. I've been, there's been some, I feel like some pretty good improvements in some of that dialogue that's been happening. We've had a lot of good sit-down conversations with some of the folks from different sides of the island, which, you know, Hana CBSFA has come up a lot in these meetings. And it's been a good chance for DLNR, you know, like our administrator and the chair to actually kind of, you know, show up and come to bat, you know, for the CBSFA and kind of say like, you know, this is why, you know, we're doing this, this is why we have it, and, you know, try and kind of tamp down some of those misconceptions, like it's a private fishery, you know, and things like that. And, you know, it's like a lot of those things, it's like ultimately they come from, like I said, personal relationships. So whether that, you know, somebody misheard something, or somebody had a bad experience one time, and then that just, you know, echoes. So it just takes time, like, you know, like the cruise ship out there, it doesn't, it's not a Zodiac, you know, it takes time to turn, you know, those public perceptions. So it's just going to be continuing to do the good work of promoting the dialogue and, you know, like the cross pollination, like what Emily's doing and everything. So.
And I'm speaking for uncles, because I heard them say this before. If you have concerns about Hana CBSFA, come to Hana. We'll host you. We'll bring you in. We'll go holo holo with you. These uncles will go holo holo with you. But it's a matter of knowing for yourself and not just listening to somebody's opinion, somebody's sort of misinformation that might be out there. Come get the real story. You know, we're storytellers before we're fishermen. So if you want to hear what we have to say, just come.
And I think the reason why the people are coming down to our place now is because the resources are really good. And why is the resource really good? It's because we have people that want to take care of the place, so we don't get resources. If we don't step down to the plate and do what we were taught to do, we grew up with this in us. Take what you need. How much you can eat. Leave the little ones alone. Or if they're spawning, don't touch them. That's their season to spawn. Basic of here. And you know, some of people maybe they didn't grow up like us. And I don't expect that. But have respect. That's why we have our rules out there. This year you can harvest 2 he'e. Maybe the next year you can harvest 4. But how many you can eat? I can eat 2 legs on one maybe at the most. I don't have to catch 2. But it's our mindset, yeah. If we're gonna think for our children, our grandchildren, that the next generations to come, we gotta do this. And this is why we get our community together and the other communities to do what we want to do. Yeah.
So we have it's 6:30, so we want to, you know, respect time. We have one more question from Amber. Maybe we could just have a brief answer for that.
Yeah, you mentioned the importance of a whole network of effort to make things happen. Is there anyone, community groups, organizations, agencies, etc., that you would like to have at the table that haven't come to the table yet? Who can help get them to the table if there are any? That's a great question.
I think for this question, very good question, Amber, thank you for that. I would say who we'd like at the table is an honest conversation with the folks that maybe have the most criticism or feedback or concerns. I think that's really why we held this today. Like we said, technically Ha'ena already did their report, our report and share out in 2021. But we held this because we wanted to uphold what we wanted to do, which was create an opportunity to speak on this side of the island and bring it outwards, because it's automatic for us to want to host in Ha'ena, and it should be where the report gets shared out. But the community and collaborating with our management partners, creating spaces like this to be able to broaden the share out is that attempt to do that. And so when those folks who we've personally called, who we've tried to reach out to really make sure that they come through, and we don't see them, it's a little discouraging, I have to say personally, because we work so hard to put just this event together, right? We've been meeting with DAR and having these talk story meetings to prepare for this day monthly for the past, I don't even know how many months already. And so for us, or at least personally for myself, I still want to honor the feedback, but it's really, it makes it hard when they're not meeting us halfway to be able to have these open conversations, because we're really here arms wide open trying to do it. And so that would be my, just making room. We're trying to make room to have these conversations, but we need you to show up.
So we do have actually one more question, and then I wanted to address here. I believe DAR is doing a great job as a department. I credit that to their commitment and engagement with impacted communities. I appreciate their presence across the Hawai'i. Is DOE Board doing the same for communities by actually listening to the subject matter experts? And that's from CJ. And I can't speak to what DOE Board is doing, but I do know that Jeremiah is, you know, like most of the divisions on the island, extremely, you know, we don't have a ton of resources. So I know that he is willing to listen to the communities when he's available. So yeah, but I don't know if there's been like a study necessarily on the voting impacts, but that might be something that would be good going forward.
Yeah.
Please, yes. You can go ahead. Yeah.
But just one more commentary, and that has to do with, you know, all the issues I brought up, you know, the funding, all the issues, the short staffing that the government. It's very so inevitably I've had opportunities to speak to different groups, and inevitably somebody will raise their hand. No, Uncle Press, what you know, what can we do to get it involved? What can we do? It's simple. And I never thought I would say this, but it's bold. Be aware of who you put it to elect. You know, it's part of some of our problems there, where we have the end of our struggle was political, you know, energy. So it's really important that we pay attention to who we elect and make sure they advocate for community-based management. It doesn't have to be fisheries, but community-based management. So that's my takeaway. You know, make sure you guys vote. So with that, mahalo to everybody. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to us. Yeah, I hope anybody has any questions, they reach out to any of us. Yeah. And, so with that, again, mahalo everybody. Yes.
I'd just like to do a little bit thank you before we fully out. First of all, thank you everybody for putting this together, people online. I'd like to thank you to my team, Hawai'i Watch team. I'd like to say thank you to Brother Chris Cardeza and his team for the response that we've had, you know, down in Hawai'i. And every time we called, he was always there. So I'd just like to say thank you to them and everybody else.
And it close as the truck with thank you for this beautiful meeting, for all the words and ideas, thoughts that have been shared. Thank you for watching over us. Thank you for all the people who have contributed to this discussion and this event. Please watch over us as we depart, and bless our families who allowed us to give us the time to be here. Be sure to watch over them. we ask that you continue to make our intentions and our desire strong, that we may carry on this good work, this hard work, this beautiful work of taking care of our places, taking care of our resources, and perpetuating all the things that has spread us over these many generations. Please watch over our ohanas near and far, especially in our beloved communities such as Kipahulu and Minoli'i. Continue to strengthen their resolve and can strengthen their words so that it may be tono and fruitful. Amen.
Food.
Thank you, everybody who joined on Zoom. Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
And you guys in here, please eat.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna close out the meeting. Thank you. Great job. You're informed on your programs.